In our headlines on this Monday, June 1st, here in South Korea, Foreign Minister Cho-hyun is hosting his counterparts from 50 African nations for an inaugural ministerial meeting to bolster economic partnership. Meanwhile, South Korea's exports hit almost $88 billion in May, soaring over 53% on year, driven by semiconductors. And come Thursday this week, the Lee Jae Myung administration celebrates its one-year anniversary following its inauguration. We start here on the local front today as South Korea opens an inaugural ministerial meeting with diplomats from 50 African nations to explore ways to expand strategic partnership amid a turbulent geopolitical landscape. Our foreign affairs correspondent Oh Soo-young starts us off.
Korean and African countries are seeking a stronger partnership for solidarity, sustainability and shared prosperity. Korea launched its first ever Korea-Africa Foreign Ministers meeting in Central Seoul on Monday as it looks to deepen ties with the continent amid growing competition over supply chains, critical minerals and emerging markets. Minister Cho-hyun formally opened the three-day meeting that brings together representatives from 50 African countries and 4 regional organizations, including the African Union.
We gather today at a critical juncture where the global order is rapidly shifting. The world is facing multifaceted challenges across various sectors, such as supply chains, energy and food security, and so on. These challenges are increasing uncertainty in the global economy.
Co-chair of the meeting, Ghana's Foreign Minister Samuel Okuzeto Ablaka highlighted the growing strength and strategic importance of Korea-Africa relations.
Strong partnerships grounded in trust, mutual respect and shared interests will remain essential in navigating an increasingly interconnected and rapidly changing global environment.
Talks focused on strengthening economic cooperation and promoting shared prosperity through greater collaboration in areas like trade, investment, infrastructure, technology, education, food security and supply chains. Ministers also touched on joint responses to global challenges, including development cooperation, climate change, health, peace and security, and people-to-people exchanges. On the sidelines, Minister Cho is set to hold bilateral talks with all foreign ministers attending on support for Korean companies operating in Africa, responses to supply chain disruptions, and the protection of Korean nationals overseas. On Tuesday, a business forum will gather 300 corporate leaders and experts, along with government officials. In the afternoon, President Lee Jae Myung will receive around 20 ministers and senior officials from African countries at the Blue House. He is expected to exchange views with the participants on ways to further expand cooperation between Korea and Africa. An inaugural Korea-Africa Leaders Summit was held in Korea 2 years ago, setting out plans for the minister-level session to follow up this year. Cho says the meeting marks a broader effort to diversify its diplomacy and expand its role as a globally responsible middle power, while building deeper, mutually beneficial partnerships with African countries. Oh Soo-young, Arirang News.
Meanwhile, on the trade front, exports hit an all-time high for the month of May, supported by semiconductors, which in turn has pushed the nation's cumulative trade surplus well beyond the $100 billion mark. Our economics correspondent Kim Do-yeon reports.
Korea's export sector continues its strong upward trajectory, fueled by surging global demand for memory chips. The Ministry of Trade, Industry and Resources reported on Monday that outbound shipments in May reached $87.7 billion. That's a massive 53.2% surge from a year earlier. It is an all-time high for the month of May and the first time exports have exceeded the $80 billion mark for 3 consecutive months. Imports also climbed 20.8% year-on-year to $60.8 billion. But despite the higher imports, the solid export performance resulted in a monthly trade surplus of $26.9 billion. As in previous months, it was chip exports that drove the surge, up 169.4% compared to the same period last year to reach $37.2 billion. And this marks a record high for semiconductor exports, staying above the $30 billion mark for 3 back-to-back months. The ministry attributed this sustained momentum directly to the rising value of these tech components.
Semiconductor exports increased even more this month compared to last month. This is because the unit price of memory semiconductors, which we continue to focus on, has risen even higher than in April.
Shipments to major trading partners saw large gains. Exports to China surged 81%, while exports to the United States increased 59%. Looking ahead, government officials remain highly optimistic about the remainder of the year.
If we look at it optimistically, achieving the $1 trillion mark is not an entirely impossible figure.
Other sectors contributing to the upward trend include petroleum products, which jumped 46.2%, and cosmetics, which grew 24.2%. Automobile exports, however, fell by 6% due to fewer working days, supplier disruptions, and ongoing geopolitical uncertainties in the Middle East. Kim Do-yeon, Arirang News.
Come Thursday this week, the Lee Jae Myung administration marks its first anniversary since its inauguration. That being said, in this following report, our Yoon Jung-min walks us through the president's diplomatic and economic endeavors over the past year. Do take a listen.
On June 4th, 2025, Lee Jae Myung was sworn in as the country's 21st president, vowing to end polarization triggered by martial law.
희망의 새 나라를 위한 우리 국민의 준엄한 명령을 반드시 받들겠습니다.
6 months later, he relocated the nation's top office back to the Blue House, or Cheongwade, the traditional presidential compound, officially ending the Yongsan era, during which martial law was declared in 2024. On the diplomatic front, President Lee reached a trade deal with his U.S. counterpart, Donald Trump, after 2 summits, promising large-scale investments in the U.S. for lower tariffs. Also agreed with cooperation on South Korea building a nuclear power submarine.
한미 동맹은 안보와 경제, 첨단 기술을 포괄하는 진정한 미래형 전략적 포괄 동맹으로 발전 심화하게 되었습니다.
President Lee has brought a kind of maturity and sort of balance to South Korean foreign policies. That's probably the best one, is sort of keeping things on the rails, given that the U.S. has turned out to be a pretty difficult partner under this president.
On top of that, the South Korean leader placed pragmatic diplomacy at the forefront, having restored Seoul-Beijing ties and resumed the so-called Seoul-Tokyo shuttle diplomacy. Another focus was expanding diplomatic horizons to the global south amid global uncertainties. On the economy, South Korean stocks have seen an unprecedented rally, driven by a global AI boom and efforts to improve shareholder returns, with the benchmark Kospi exceeding far beyond the 5,000 threshold, one of its campaign pledges. In 2025, Korea secured 260,000 GPUs from NVIDIA and launched the Presidential Council on National AI Strategy.
저는 우리가 하기에 따라서 이 코리아 디스카운트가 아니고 얼마든지 정상 평가를 넘어서서 코리아 프리미엄도 가능하다.
Reviving the people's livelihoods was also a key pillar, with the administration organizing extra budgets to breathe life into the economy in the form of consumption vouchers, as well as minimizing the fallout from the Middle East conflict as the country navigates high interest rates, high inflation, and a weaker currency. When it comes to stabilizing housing prices in the capital, Seoul, the president has reinstated the heavy capital gains tax on multiple home owners and sent out a series of strong messages to curb housing speculation. 1 year ago, President Lee took an oath of office, placing pragmatism front and center. For his second year in office, he puts greater emphasis on yielding tangible outcomes. He will unveil key policy visions next week for the year ahead. Yoon Jung-min, Arirang News.
U.S. President Donald Trump has reportedly toughened the terms of Washington's potential peace pact with Tehran, while the latter, for its part, seeks, quote, concrete concessions. Our Park Junan has the latest.
U.S. President Donald Trump sent back changes to a proposed deal from Iran after a meeting with advisors on Friday. While the exact details of the edits remain unclear, an official familiar with the issue told CNN that Trump is pushing for much stricter language regarding Iran's nuclear restrictions and the guaranteed reopening of the Strait of Hormuz. Reports suggest that Trump is also highly cautious about relaxing sanctions on Tehran, including access to frozen Iranian funds, as he aims to avoid repeating what he views as flaws in past administrations' nuclear deals. Tehran responded with deep skepticism, reiterating that it will not accept a one-sided agreement. Iranian Parliament Speaker Mohammad Bagher Ghalibaf made it clear that no deal will receive approval unless Iran's sovereign rights are fully protected. Ghalibaf said that Iranian negotiators place no trust in the words and promises of the enemy, adding that tangible results would lead Iran to fulfill its commitments. Ongoing geopolitical tensions continue to weigh heavily on consumers and global energy markets. Regular gasoline prices averaged $4.34 per gallon in the U.S. over the weekend, almost 46% higher than before the war. Addressing the economic impact at home, U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent downplayed concerns about recent price increases, describing the energy-driven inflation as a temporary supply shock that would ease as global markets stabilize. Park Junan, Arirang News.
Also in the Middle East, Israel has seized a fortress of symbolic and strategic significance in southern Lebanon as its ground offensive deepens. Our Jae explains.
Israel says it has captured the strategic Beaufort Castle in southern Lebanon, which Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu described as a decisive shift in the country's offensive against Hezbollah. Located just 14.5 kilometers from the Israeli border, the fortress overlooks the Litani Valley, beyond an area in southern Lebanon from where Israel had stated its original objective was to remove Hezbollah fighters. It is seen as both a symbolic and strategic prize. In a statement following the operation, Netanyahu said Israel had broken the barrier of fear and was now taking the initiative across multiple fronts, including Lebanon, Gaza, and Syria. He said the goal is to deepen and expand Israel's control over areas previously held by Hezbollah. Defense Minister Israel Katz highlighted the symbolic significance of the capture, noting that the Golani Brigade, which first seized the castle during the Lebanon War 4 decades ago, had once again raised the Israeli flag over the site. Israeli officials say controlling Beaufort Castle and the surrounding ridge strengthens protection for communities along Israel's northern border. The development comes as Israeli ground forces continue advancing deeper into Lebanese territory beyond the Litani River, while the military has expanded evacuation orders across southern Lebanon. The Israel Defense Forces have again warned residents to leave all areas south of the Zorani River, marking the second such broad evacuation order in recent days. Lebanese Prime Minister Nawaf Salam condemned the operation, accusing Israel of carrying out what he called collective punishment. The castle was built by crusaders roughly 900 years ago and was held by Israel from 1982 until 2000. Jae, Arirang News.
Meanwhile, across the border this past weekend, North Korea's Kim Jong-un was at a massive greenhouse compound for the third time this year to commend the efforts thus far and to call for technological advancements beyond those for simple production. Our Yoon Jin files this report.
North Korean leader Kim Jong-un visited a large-scale greenhouse complex in the northwestern city of Sinuiju on Sunday, accompanied by his wife Lee Seol-ju, daughter Ju-ae, sister Kim Yo-jong, and other ranking officials. It was his third visit to the complex this year, and his eighth visit since 2024 when it was built following devastating floods to showcase the regime's focus on improving people's livelihoods. The North Korean Central News Agency reported on Monday that Kim visited the complex for an on-site review of vegetable production and management operations. It also said that Kim expressed satisfaction with reports that hundreds of tons of vegetables were being harvested daily. For improvements, he stressed the need to be able to grow vegetables year-round while reducing energy consumption and production costs, calling it an urgent matter. In addition to greater crop diversification, Kim also addressed methodological issues, saying the focus needs to go beyond productivity. He called for the application of scientific and technological principles to fertilizer and cultivation management, including greater mechanization of production and logistics, as well as a faster adoption of advanced technologies. He also stressed the need to ensure the supply of highly nutritious and flavorful vegetables for the people. Kim also toured the ongoing construction sites of a new health center facility and a vegetable processing plant, both of which are reportedly at about 50% completion. He commented that the new constructions will contribute to improving the health and quality of life of residents, and that once completed, the complex will serve as a model and new standard for regional development in the new era. 이은진, Arirang News.
South Korea, meanwhile, is poised to command the world's largest international maritime exercise, the Rim of the Pacific, later this month, as its largest ever naval destroyer sets sail for the 5-week drill in the waters of Hawaii. Our Cha Eun-kyung reports.
The South Korean Navy has announced that its Aegis destroyer, the Jeongjo the Great, is set to depart from a naval base on Monday on Jeju Island to join the U.S.-led Rim of the Pacific exercise. The vessel will be making its debut appearance in RIMPAC, a multinational maritime exercise taking place in Hawaii from June 24th to July 31st. The 3,000-ton submarine Dosan Anchangho and a P-8A maritime patrol aircraft will also join the drill for the first time. The other South Korean vessels will join the exercise after completing separate operations. The Dosan Anchangho and the frigate Daejeon will head to Hawaii following joint exercises with Canada. The landing ship Cheonjabong will depart on June 7th after a joint search and rescue drill with Japan in waters of Jeju Island. In total, around 700 Navy and Marine Corps personnel, 8 W-159 maritime operation helicopters, and 6 Korean amphibious assault vehicles will be deployed at RIMPAC. RIMPAC is a biennial multinational exercise held under the supervision of the U.S. Third Fleet to enhance cooperation among participating countries in securing sea lines of communication and countering potential security challenges at sea. According to the Third Fleet website, this year, a multinational force of 31 nations with more than 25,000 personnel, around 40 surface ships, 5 submarines, and 140 aircraft will participate. For the first time, South Korea will lead the Combined Forces Maritime Component Command. The South Korean Navy said that the RIMPAC exercise will be a great chance for South Korea to strengthen capabilities for combined naval operation plans, since Seoul seeks to retake wartime operational control from the United States. Cha Eun-kyung, Arirang News.
In other news now, Korea's cultural festivals have drawn a record number of visitors. According to the Korea Tourism Organization on this Monday, well over 14 million people attended the 62 government-designated cultural festivals in the year 2025. Foreign tourists also continue to account for over 100,000 of the visitors for the second year in a row. Festival-related spending, meanwhile, hit some 464 billion Korean won, or $306 million US, with nearly half of all spending going toward food and beverages.
This is The World Now, bringing you everything you need to know from around the globe. An explosion at a village in Myanmar's Shan state has killed at least 55 people and wounded dozens more. According to local media reports, the blast occurred at noon local time on Sunday in Kaung Tot village near the Chinese border. The Taang National Liberation Army rebel group that controlled the area said mining explosives stored in the village detonated accidentally. Footage from the scene showed a large crater surrounded by shattered buildings. Children were among the dead and hundreds of homes were damaged. An investigation is underway. Colombia is heading to a presidential runoff after no candidate secured more than 50% of the vote on Sunday, with right-wing outsider Abelardo de la Espriella leading leftist Senator Iván Cepeda by 43% to 41%. De la Espriella, a lawyer known as El Tigre, or the Tiger, who has never held elected office, has modeled himself on El Salvador's Nayib Bukele and is promising a military crackdown on armed groups. Cepeda has pledged to continue outgoing President Petro's peace negotiation strategy with rebel groups. The runoff is seen as a test of the direction Latin America will take between progressive policies and the region's growing shift toward hardline security candidates. 5 patients have recovered from Ebola virus in the Democratic Republic of Congo, the first documented recoveries by people with confirmed cases since the current outbreak began. The head of the World Health Organization said on Sunday that 4 patients were discharged that day and 1 the day before, adding that anyone who contracts Ebola can recover with early treatment even without an approved vaccine or medicine. A new treatment center opened in Congo's Ituri province on Sunday. The WHO said 134 confirmed cases have been recorded across Congo and Uganda, with 18 confirmed deaths as of May 29th. Doctors Without Borders warned the virus is still spreading faster than the response. Paris Saint-Germain won the Champions League for the second consecutive year on Saturday, beating Arsenal on penalties in Budapest. But celebrations back in France turned violent overnight, leaving more than 200 people injured and 1 dead. French authorities said 57 police officers were injured in Paris and over 400 people were taken into custody. Rioters torched cars and rental bikes and destroyed storefronts across the French capital. Interior Minister Laurent Nunez said more than 20,000 officers had been deployed and the situation was overall under control. Far-right leader Marine Le Pen said, quote, "Only in France does a football victory trigger riots." President Macron called the violence unacceptable. Chu Ji-hyun, Arirang News.
The month of June got off to a hot start today, and it'll get even hotter tomorrow. If temperatures climb to the forecast high of 33 degrees Celsius, Seoul could see its hottest day of the year so far. Meanwhile, mountainous areas of Jeju Island could pick up more than 150 millimeters of rain, while parts of the southern coast may see over 80 millimeters. Most of the rain will taper off by tomorrow afternoon, but rain may be accompanied by gusty winds and lightning, so be sure to stay weather aware. In areas that remain dry, UV levels will be very high. If you're heading outdoors, be sure to use sunscreen and wear a hat to protect yourself from the sun. Tomorrow, Seoul will start the day at 19 degrees, Chuncheon at 16 degrees, Daegu at 20 degrees. Then by the afternoon, Seoul will get up to 33 degrees, while the southern regions, including Busan and Jeju, will both top out at 24 degrees. Looking ahead to Wednesday's local elections, parts of Jeollado and Gyeongsang-namdo provinces could see brief afternoon showers. Now here's a look at the weather around the world.
Those are the headlines at this hour here in South Korea. Coming up right after this break is our daily panel session.